It's just going to restart the thing.
Okay. Macklin Celebrini is third in scoring in the NHL. But we're not here to glaze hockey players. We're here to get you a championship. Producer, hit that button. Welcome to the Fantasy Forecast with Grindberg and Bigz. This is the weekend wrap up for week 15 into week 16 and the waiver wire show. Take 3. We kick things off with the top headlines from week 15, followed by a deep dive into the best waiver wire pickups at QB, tight end, wide receiver, and running back to help you get ahead before your league mates do. Whether you're chasing upside or filling injury gaps. Oh my God, what a week. We've got you covered with sharp takes, real-time reactions, and some special FSAN flavor along the way. Come for the analysis, stay for the shenanigans. Stay ready and stay active and stay winning. How about Macklin Celebrini? Did you watch him against Pittsburgh the other night? Sharks were down 5-1 in the third period, and they came back, scored a couple goals. It was 5-3, and then he had 2 assists and a goal for the last 3 scores, and they won in overtime. It was incredible, and he's 19 years old. And he's going to take Team Canada along with Sidney Crosby because they play well together to a gold medal.
I hope so, man. I really hope so. Good analysis there, Bigz. You're a sharp hockey mind, and you know what else?
He's got me re-energized. I haven't watched hockey in years, except for like some Jets stuff in the playoffs. Yeah. And I've been like shopping Macklin Celebrini shirts still, like already. He's a phenom, man.
They're going to be celebrating him in a couple of years, right? And people are celebrating right now because they had a monster week. And if you were advancing in your fantasy playoffs headed into, the semifinals, you probably needed a monster week because there was a couple big juggernaut performances. And we got a lot to talk about, Bigz. How are you doing this weekend?
Man, so I'm in a listener league with some of the Fantasy Cares guys, and it's a dynasty. I took over an orphan last year. So this is my second year in the league, and I have the best record in the league. This week it's a super flex. I had Jalen Hurts and Trevor Lawrence, and I had Trey McBride, Harold Fannin, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and Travis Etienne, and I absolutely bodied the league, highest scorer of the season.
That's incredible stuff. Yeah,
48 teams, highest score of the season.
Love it. Yeah, that's what happened this week. After all the buys are done and a lot of playoff implications for many football teams, there's not a team that is running away essentially with their division, with their conference. So there's a lot at stake, and there's still a lot at stake.
The Chiefs.
Yeah, exactly. But we'll get into our storylines, Bigz, and let's start with number 1, and that is Trevor Lawrence, who drops a fantasy nuke when it mattered most. Week 15 is where fantasy seasons are saved or buried, and Trevor Lawrence chose violence. In Jacksonville's blowout win over the Jets, Lawrence delivered the highest scoring Week 15 fantasy points by a quarterback in history, detonating lineups. For depending on what format you're in, he had about 44 fantasy points, and he carved up the New York Jets for 330 yards, 5 touchdowns, and he casually added 51 yards on the ground and a rushing score. The wild part, Lawrence was probably riding a lot of people's benches in one quarterback leagues outside of Superflex. Many managers didn't have the courage to trust him, and those who did were rewarded with a superhero-like production. This wasn't just a spike week either. Lawrence now has multiple touchdown passes in 4 straight games. Jacksonville has scored 25 plus points in 7 consecutive contests, and the offense looks fully unlocked. The challenge ramps up with Denver's elite defense in week 16, but after witnessing a historic dominant December performance, fantasy managers are left with one terrible opponents. What if Trevor Lawrence decided to go nuclear at the exact time in week 16? What's your thoughts here, Bigz, on that week 15 eruption? Is it a once in a lifetime lightning strike, or did he just crown himself the ultimate playoff X factor for managers bold enough to start him again in week 16 and beyond?
Well, I'm surprised that the number one storyline is not what happened to Patrick Mahomes, but we'll talk about that a little bit later. He's the QB2 and he loses the season. All right, so Trevor Lawrence absolutely unlocked by Jacoby Myers. Denver is a really, really good defense, but we see them in some high scoring games. I think that with Jacoby Myers unlocking Trevor Lawrence, Travis Etienne just going off the way that he can, I think Trevor Lawrence is a safe play against Denver. I really, really think that you shouldn't have a problem playing him in week 16. Now, if you have two quarterbacks that you're rotating, say you have like a Dak Prescott and Trevor Lawrence, or a Jackson Dart and Trevor Lawrence, maybe look at the matchups. If it looks like your other guy has an opportunity to go off, maybe go with that guy. But I'd still feel safe with Trevor in week 16 against Denver.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at his last 5 weeks, he's been a top 12 quarterback, and he's top 7 right now in fantasy points per game at the quarterback position. So great week 15. I know it wasn't a great match. It was a juicy matchup versus the Jets, but I mean, we're looking at, maybe not repeating this type of performance, but getting some, noteworthy performances down the stretch here. Playoff Trevor is back, and excited to see what this Jags team can bring to the playoffs, because the AFC is wide open right now with Denver looking good. So this game against Denver this week is going to be a lot at stake. So I'm excited to see that one and how that one will play out. Now, Bigz, let's move on to the next one. And it's been a tight end apocalypse. Trey McBride breaks records, win fantasy weeks, and laughs at game scripts in season where Arizona's given up fantasy managers. There hasn't been much for us to cheer about for Cardinals fans, but McBride has turned Sundays into a one-man victory parade. Even in a 40-20 loss to Houston, McBride detonated again the scoreboard at a nuclear stat line: 12 catches on 13 targets, 134 yards, 2 touchdowns, 32% target share. The yardage marked a career high. The scores pushed him into double-digit touchdowns for the first time, and this performance all but cemented him as the Week 15 league winner. There's a lot of league winners this week, but Trey McBride was one of them. The fireworks were there, back-to-back 100-catch seasons, consecutive 5-catch streaks away from Travis Kelce's 16 games. So getting pretty close to that here. Zach Ertz's all-time tight end reception record squarely in the crosshairs with 3 games left. And Jacoby Brissett is just feeding him the ball at a great rate. And what are we looking at next week? Atlanta, followed by week 17, now staring at it. A matchup against the Bengals, the league's worst defense versus tight ends. Is McBride an ultimate league winner rest of season, Bigz? And are we talking about a set it and forget it, build the trophy case now type of playoff hammer?
He absolutely is the tight end one rest of the season. One of the things is he finished his tight end 2 last year behind Brock Bowers, and he had 250 fantasy points. Right now he's sitting on like 279 fantasy points, and he's ramped up his output. So he has more targets right now than he did at this point last year. He has more catches at this point this year than he did last year. He's got 8 more touchdowns already. We knew over the last couple of years, as soon as like they start hitting Trey McBride in the end zone, he's going to absolutely go off because of his production between the 20s. So yeah, he's a set it and forget it guy. He's gonna win you a league. In my home league, I'm staring down the barrel of one of the players having maybe going up against this guy, and he's got a whole bunch of players on his team. Amon-Ra St. Brown and and he's got Trey McBride, and I'm just hoping that next week he gets knocked out, so I don't have to see him in the championship, because I don't want to face Trey McBride. My other leagues that I have Trey McBride, I'm very happy to have him, but I don't want to face him in a money league.
Never. All right, man. Let's get on to storyline number 3, and it's Blink and it's 6, and Tre'Veon Henderson turns fantasy playoff into a track meet. And for much of the season, we've been touting him just like especially in the latter half, Bigz. We've been really high. You capped him as a league winner, I think, about 5 weeks ago, and things are looking like that. He dropped 29 fantasy points, torching the Bills with 2 long touchdown runs of 50-plus yards on just 14 carries. He finished with 148 yards and 10.6 yards per carry, extending New England's lead with a 52-yard touchdown score and then a 65-yard touchdown score. But they couldn't hold on in that game against Buffalo. But Henderson was a bright spot, especially in the second half when they didn't have a whole lot going on. The breakout just wasn't a fluke. We called it. The trend is now hitting full throttle. Henderson has now exceeded 80 scrimmage yards in 6 straight games and posted 150 scrimmage yards twice in the last 5, while tying Saquon Barkley's NFL rookie record with 450-plus touchdown runs. This is great news for fantasy managers that have Tre'Veon Henderson, Bigz, and you're looking at a league winner potentially now. At this point, Bigz, he's a locked-in league winner rest of season. We talked about it. Even in a so-called committee, are you starting him over safer volume backs, knowing he can end your opponent's season in 1 carry? Who are you crossing the line and maybe not having them in your lineup if you're, on the fence about Tre'Veon Henderson?
Nobody.
Nobody.
Nobody, because there isn't a situation where you have 2 top line guys and also Tre'Veon Henderson, or 5 guys, some that you can put in flex, and you also have Tre'Veon Henderson and you'd leave him on your bench. There isn't a scenario like that out there. I wrote him up in our FSAN rookie guide before the season, had him as my RB3. He's definitely outproduced that number. And we called it on the show. We saw his breakout coming. We told everybody to go to the waiver wire and pick him up because he was out there. And then the following week, boom, he just started going on this run. So you can't mess around. There's a league on ESPN that I have Devon Achane and Christian McCaffrey. And then in my flex, I'm running out. I have Dalton Schultz. I don't have anybody that I would play over him. So if I had Achane and Christian McCaffrey, I'd roll with that, but I wouldn't, and I'd start Tre'Veon on my flex. But that's about the only situation I can think of where you have 2 top line guys like that, and then Tre'Veon Henderson, but you're still playing him. You're still playing him.
Yeah, he's automatic, set and forget it now, and he's proved himself, and I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do down the stretch here, because all it takes is, a couple touches, and he's there. He's getting you over the hump and into the championship weekend, and who isn't going to be in the championship weekend anytime soon? That is Patrick Mahomes and the Sunday Night Massacre. It happened. He falls, and so do the hopes of fantasy managers with him that had him. Bigz mentioned earlier, quarterback 2 fell late in the 4th quarter in a must-win game. The unthinkable happened. Mahomes was rolled up and from behind and immediately grabbing his left knee, and it's a torn ACL, done for the year. And Gardner Minshew finished the game through a pick, and we know it's a long road ahead for fantasy managers that have Mahomes now. Hopefully you got somebody that can replace him on your bench. In 1 quarterback leagues, it's going to be almost next to impossible to replace him in Superflex. For managers who rode Mahomes into the playoffs, the rug was pulled out at the worst possible moment. And yet, as Mahomes said himself, the story isn't over. It's just pause. Now, Bigz, with Mahomes done for the year, the biggest thing for me now for fantasy managers, obviously trying to replace Mahomes, but that's the story behind Rashee Rice. Is he still a weekly starter, or does his ceiling completely vanish with Gardner Minshew under center at the worst possible time?
I don't trust Gardner Minshew at all. The Chiefs have had a couple of really terrible matchups the last couple of weeks. They got Houston and the LA Chargers, And Rashee Rice finished as wide receiver 43 and wide receiver 28 in those 2 weeks. It's been a while since he saw wide receiver 6 and wide receiver 2 finishes against Indy and Dallas, but he does get Tennessee coming up. The problem with Gardner Minshew, though, is that he can't throw the ball deep, and that's one of the things that Rashee Rice excels in. 11.75 yards per target, 11.43 yards per target, 10.33 yards per target in the games that he is like shown out in. 4.25 and 4.64 the last couple weeks. 4.22 against Denver when he was wide receiver 34. So if he's going to be like a closer to the line of scrimmage target, it's not going to be fun. And then he gets Denver again in week 17. So I already didn't trust the Kansas City pass catchers, even though somehow Travis Kelce still winds up having a tight end 2 ranking at this point. But if Gardner can't throw the ball downfield, if Xavier Worthy is the guy who's down there and Rashee Rice is the one who's catching targets closer to the line of scrimmage, I don't see a whole lot from Rashee Rice the next couple weeks.
Yeah, it's unfortunate news. I was on the same wavelength as you, and something that I wasn't on the same wavelength was Bo Nix last weekend. He just went nuclear, and the Broncos clinch a playoff berth with a 4-touchdown masterclass against the Packers. He delivered fantasy fireworks display, and Bo Nix, he torched the Packers for 302 yards, 4 touchdowns, rallying the Broncos from behind at halftime from a deficit to a victory, 34-26, and things were looking good. He was precision. He 23 for 34, shredded a usually disciplined Packers secondary, and now they are first team in the AFC to clinch a playoff berth. And for fantasy managers, Nix has officially crossed the potential streamer to high ceiling weekly starter. He did it last year, and he had some bouts of it earlier this season, but it looks like he could be a set it and forget it guy moving forward. Bigz, with him lighting up the Packers and the Broncos clinching early, is he a must start rest of season, or can he carry your fantasy team through the AFC stretch run here?
Did that hurt?
It totally hurt.
Why do we have to glaze up AFC West rivals? Can we not? Let's talk about the guys that we hate that get injured, not the guys that we hate that do good. He had a big game in a fairly mid matchup. He had a huge game against the New York Giants, almost 40 points in a bad matchup, 25 against Cincinnati. He's got Jacksonville, which is kind of favorable next week, except for Jacksonville has been playing much, much better on defense lately. Previous to this week, he had 12 points, QB 19 against the Chiefs, 16.44 points, QB 14 against Washington, and then 15.98 points, QB 15 against Las Vegas. I don't know what happened in that game. Maybe it was just the fact that the Green Bay Packers are competitive, which leads me to believe that maybe Jacksonville, if Trevor Lawrence is having a great game against them, then Bo Nix is going to be. It seems like it's a game script thing with Bo Nix. They just keep winning, but it depends on how they win when he goes off. So if they can get out in front of Jacksonville, I don't think he has a big week. If Jacksonville starts off super hot, and that's a home game for Jacksonville, I can see Bo Nix having a big day. So no, he's not a set it and forget it guy. Currently, he's sitting right at quarterback 8, but 3 of the last 4 weeks, he's had like outside of top 12 finishes. It's just this week that kind of props him up a little bit. Over the course of the season, he's sitting at QB 8. He was QB 7 last year, so it seems to be fairly consistent where he ranks. But it also does seem like it's a matchup based thing. And if I have somebody who has a better matchup, then I'm going with him.
Yeah, sounds good, man. I appreciate the insight. And let's get into the insight that we hit or miss last week in our studs and duds. And I'm going to start us off this week because I don't know. I just want to get through this. I mean, Bo Nix was one of my sits, and we just talked about him in length, and I thought it was a tougher matchup. I liked a lot of other quarterbacks this week ahead of him, and it just didn't end up panning out that way. So Bo Nix wasn't a good call on my behalf. I did smash the Lad McConkey call. He had a really down game against the Chiefs. Woody Marks would have been a smash. So I'm going to call that a wash. He got injured. Depending on what format you're using, that touchdown he scored may or may not have counted. I'm not sure why it wouldn't have. I mean, not sure that was a fumble. It went right through his legs. I think that was even a more of a design play. Harold Fannin was a wash because he didn't make or break you. He wasn't like a smash pick, but he certainly didn't lose you your week in a week where there was a lot of things happening. So Harold Fannin, Woody Marks washes, Lad McConkey smash, and Bo Nix was a failure on my behalf. What about you, Biggs?
Phantom was tight end 10, so that's within the top 12, and that's pretty good. He was no Gunnar Helm.
No.
All right. My heartfelt apologies to anybody who, even after me saying, "Hey, don't sit these guys if you don't have any better options," but sat Zay Flowers and James Cook. James Cook, out of nowhere, he got shut down by New England before, and then he goes out and has 31 points for an RB2 finish. And then Zay Flowers, wide receiver 20, so that's definitely a wide receiver 2 finish, 16.8 yards. He was another guy that had single digits the previous game that they had played. And so that's a rough one. I apologize. I said start Marcus Mariota. He had 15 points. That was, I was hoping for better, but he just didn't compete, I guess. And then I said start Jawan Jennings, and he finishes wide receiver 12. That was I wanted more from him, but that was still a good call on my part. And then on Breakfast with Biggs, I said start Kayshon Boutte over Diggs, and that was a 1.6 point swing. So that's kind of a wash, not really much there. I had Rico Dowdle over McMillan and Hubbard. Rico's 12 points were more than McMillan and Hubbard combined. Somebody asked about Burrow and May, and I said start Burrow. Wah, wah. I was 5.5 points to May's 20.5. And then I had Jennings and Jacoby on a question over Dubs and Reed. That was 18.7 for Jennings and 12.1 for Jacoby Myers. Dubs 5.6 and Reed 10.5. So that was a good call. I had Khalil Shakir 11.5 points, wide receiver 32. That's a good flex spot. And then somebody asked about being scared and starting Emmanuel Wilson and Brian Robinson. And I said, don't do that. McCaffrey and Jacobs are going to play 23.2 RB6 for Jacobs and 16.7. A down week, RB12 for McCaffrey, but not a killer. And so, yeah, all in all, it was mostly a good week. Just that James Cook call was terrible. Good, just like you with Bo Nix, good process, opposite results.
Agreed. One bad call. Yeah, I mean, could lose it, but we thought we had it, so happens, right? I made a bad call on a Twitter one where I said start Drake May over Trevor Lawrence, and look how well that turned out. So apologize to that
Twitter ones.
All right, folks, let's get into our waiver wire pickups. Biggs, who do you got at the tight end or quarterback position this week?
Well, first of all, I want to start off with saying, don't go add Phillip Rivers. Don't do it. Don't do it. Yeah, he's fine, but single digit performance in a loss. Seattle Seahawks, first time they've won in like decades where they didn't score a touchdown. It was just all field goals. And if you're an NFL quarterback and your team loses to another team that's only scoring field goals, that's not good. Don't go pick up Phillip Rivers. Do go pick up Marcus Mariota. We got news yesterday. We're taping this before Monday Night Football on Monday. There was news that broke today, Monday, that Jaden Daniels has been shut down for the rest of the season. That means Marcus Mariota is going to be the quarterback going forward. We know Marcus Mariota has running potential. That's the cheat code in fantasy. So go grab him just in case you had Mahomes or you need a little bit of help. Go grab Marcus Mariota.
Do it. And if he's still around, I mean, a lot of leagues he's kind of been a streamer, and if
He's
you have somebody else,
owned in 11% of ESPN leagues.
there you go. Yeah, exactly. So that's a very low percentage, and a guy that is a lot more owned, but still on the cusp. I think he's still available in about 30% of leagues, and that's Trevor Lawrence. And we talked about him, 6 touchdowns. You can't avoid that. And Biggs has talked about his matchup next week against the Denver Broncos, and I think both teams are going to be looking to really prove a point in this one. I think there could be some fireworks in this one for both of these guys, both Bo Nix and Trevor Lawrence. So yeah, go out and pick up Trevor Lawrence if he's still there, and I think he's streamable. I think he's startable for the rest of the season unless you got a stud top 5 guy. Like, they got the Indian Week 17 championship week, and I still think that is a matchup that is exploitable even with the Phillip Rivers. So I think this could be a situation where Trevor Lawrence continues his streak and becomes a guy that you can start for the rest of the year.
Yeah, agreed.
All right, Biggs, let's get into our wide receivers that we're going to, maybe roster, maybe not start, but definitely worth a look at this stage of the game.
So without victory lapping JJ McCarthy coming out and throwing absolute dots last night on Sunday Night Football, he found Jalen Nailor quite a bit. Jalen Nailor has been a real sleeper this year. He's had some breakout games, but it's not been consistent. If JJ McCarthy is going to be throwing lasers the way he's been doing, and they're in competitive games. They were playing against Dallas, who scores a lot of points. Look for Jalen Nailor. If he's available on your waiver wire, he could turn into a really good flex matchup for you. There was one pass that McCarthy threw into the end zone to Justin Jefferson, and Justin Jefferson dropped it. He couldn't handle the heat. Like, he threw an absolute seed, and it went right through Jefferson's hands. Don't sleep on JJ McCarthy if you play Dynasty. I'm telling you, he will emerge. But yeah, Jalen Nailor, go get him.
Let's go. Let's get him. Let's get him on our rosters. And yeah, back and forth it is. And let's get back into wide receiver. And Biggs mentioned him a couple weeks ago. David Sills quietly emerging as one of the hottest waiver wire pickups this week. Showed what he could do against a decent defense, and Kirk Cousins emerging Thursday night, 29-28 win over the Bucks, highlighted how productive Sills can be when given the opportunity. 6 catches for 78 yards, leading Atlanta's receiving core in clutch moments. It wasn't Darnell Mooney taking the heat. It was Sills, and that was an interesting proposition when you look at the outline of that game. And we don't know what's going to happen with Drake London headed into this week. So keep your eye there on Sills, and someone that maybe in these deeper leagues, you may look at the matchup and look at what you got on your roster and say, hey, maybe this guy can do me some damage. And 70 yards is nothing to scoff out about, and he had 10 targets as well. So clearly Cousins is leaning on him, and Cousins is there for the rest of the year. So somebody to keep your eye on, and especially if Drake London misses. So yeah, David Sills.
This is one of those big I told you so's. Nobody else in the entire fantasy space 3 weeks ago was talking about David Sills but me. So also he's David Sills the fifth because his dad was David Sills the fourth, and his grandfather was David Sills the third, and his great grandfather was David Sills the second, and his great great grandfather was David Sills the first.
Cool. All right, man.
Yeah.
Well, that's an interesting chronological order there, and I appreciate it there, man. I mean, I couldn't have connected the dots, but I did now. So thanks for completing that line for me. And okay, let's complete our show here, Biggs, and let's get into our running back. I think both of these guys could, and they deserve to be spotlighted. So, Biggs, let's start with you.
Well, earlier you mentioned start sit advice on Twitter, and I want to go back because there were a couple questions based on our show last week when we talked about Devin Neal, and Devin Neal unfortunately got hurt, but he still put up 10 points. We had a question on Twitter, Devin Neal or Kyle Monangai, and I said start Neal. Kyle Monangai had 3.3 points to Devin Neal's 10. So that was a win on that one. And then I had another guy that asked, where to go? 2 from Hubbard, Hampton, Neal, or Dowdle. And I said take Dowdle and Neal. And that was the right call on that too. Unfortunately, Devin Neal got hurt, left the game, and likely won't play in week 16. So what do? Well, there are 2 guys who are in New Orleans backfield. Evan Hull, who was a combine darling before he was drafted by the Indianapolis Colts. Now he's on the Saints. And then Audric Estime, who was the opposite. His value completely plummeted after the combine. He got drafted by the Denver Broncos, and now he's on the New Orleans Saints. So it's one of those 2 guys that's going to take over for Devin Neal. Alvin Kamara is probably not coming back. So which one do you go with? Audric Estime has a longer NFL resume as far as historically what he's been able to do than Evan Hull. Evan Hull has been more of an RB3. Audric Estime has been more of an RB2. As far as their depth chart placement on the teams that they've been on, neither of them has been prolific. It looks like we have about 57 total fantasy points in 2 seasons for Audric Estime, but 6 points in 3 seasons for Evan Hull. So I say take Audric Estime. Every team needs an RB1 on the depth chart. And if this week 16, you're in the fantasy playoffs and Audric Estime is out there, he's the RB1 in New Orleans. We have to look at the matchup, and they play against the New York Jets. So what do you think is going to happen? What just happened to the Jets against Travis Etienne? And Audric Estime had 3 targets and 3 catches, so he's involved in the pass game, and Tyler Shuck knows that he's there. Audric Estime is a smash waiver wire ad for week 16.
There it is. Biggs' spotlight. Let's get into mine. So unfortunately, Woody Marks went down and his ankle, it didn't look good. So who came in? It was Jawar Jordan. He turned heads in his first NFL action, showing that opportunity plus talent can equal fantasy relevance. Woody Marks left early in week 15, and the Texans turned to the 2024 6th-round pick, and Jordan didn't just fill in. He stole the show. 17 touches, 118 yards, including a massive 50-yard run, helped Houston secure their 40-20 win over the Cardinals, instantly making him a name to watch in fantasy circles. What makes him so tantalizing is the option here is potential for more touches in the coming weeks. Nick Chubb is still dealing with his injury, and Marks's availability is going to be uncertain. And like some of these other guys that, you know, when the genie comes out of the bottle or out of the whatever you call it, you can't really put it back in, and that's what's happening here. So I think some opportunity moving forward, and especially if Marks is out, might be a guy you can actually start next week, depending on if Marks is playing. So keep an eye on Jawar Jordan, and I mean, obviously, if you got some fab left, I'd be investing in him at this stage.
What's really fun about fantasy football is the fact that this is like our other job, and we spend probably a full-time job number of hours digging into fantasy football analysis, spreadsheets, results week by week. Like, we literally spend 40 plus hours doing this. And we are in week 16, week 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. We start seeing names pop up that we've never heard before, like David Sills V and Jawar Jordan. And we're telling people to go pick them up. Never crossed the radar. Never, like, that's so awesome.
Not if you're playing fantasy and you need to start these clowns because you're injured through the ying. But I mean,
well, that's what's great. Like, you win leagues by doing the homework, and then you have 300 names in your head of guys in the NFL, and late in the season, a couple pop up out of nowhere that you've never heard of before.
It's incredible. You know what's
Yeah.
incredible is the community that we've built here on Fantasy Sports Advice Network, and we got a ton going down the pipeline right now. So, Biggs, why don't you round off the show like you always do, like you always do?
So, I mean, we are here to get you through the fantasy playoffs and win you that championship that you so desperately desire. So, we've got content that comes out all week long to help you. Stay tuned on Thursday for Thursday night points after Thursday. As soon as the clock goes to 0 on Thursday Night Football, we go live. Starts and sits advice for Week 16. So you need to be there for that. Then Friday, our sit show drops. Fantasy Forecast sits. Dynasty Pulse. If you are a Dynasty degenerate like we are, then you want to see the Dynasty Pulse. Also on Saturday, we got the Fantasy Forecast Starts show, so you're going to want to tune in for that. And then to wrap it up, right before the games, 8:30 a.m. on Sunday morning, Breakfast with Bigz and Charlie. And that's 8:30 West Coast, 11:30 East Coast. Then we come back for the Week 16 wrap up. All you guys that are listening to us and are moving on in your playoffs, we will see you next Tuesday.
We will see you, and we hope you win, folks. And yeah, peace out, everyone.